Last night was a gift to America. It was certainly a gift to the 77 million people who voted for Trump or to triple Trumpers like me, 2016, 2020, 2024. But it was a gift to all Americans. We're going to get into that. Okay. We're going to try to go get two observations that are, not 100% being talked about by a lot of people. I'll offer you something a little different here. This is The Ordinary American. I'm your host, Paul Sarkis. It's called The Ordinary American because I hate experts. The experts suck. The experts are the ones who told us a laptop was Russian disinformation. They told us that the Russia hoax was real when it was really them who was working with Russia to undermine our president. Okay? The experts have been wrong about everything. As a dad, I found out first day, I can remember this clear as I was like, oh, there was a certain thing that came up. I was like, what do I do? I don't know what to do. You have to know what to do when you're not an expert, and you got to figure it out. You got to watch, learn, listen, read, trust your instincts, be willing to make mistakes, improvise, adapt, overcome, as the Marines say very quickly. The experts cause all of the major problems. Okay? This show is ordinary Americans thinking for themselves. I bring this up all the time. I got to figure out when I go take my car to the shop and they tell me I need 27 things. I don't know what's really happening under the hood. I got to figure it out. Here's a great lesson from Dennis Prager. I probably said this before. If you're confused, do I believe this guy or do I believe this guy? If you're confused, this is what you do. Whichever side is offering you more information or more access to information or encouraging you to have more information is the one you should probably believe. For example, last night, the press, ABC, CNN, whatever other nonsense leftist media, they didn't cover the speech. They said, oh, well, it's disinformation, or we've already been over this, or whatever lies they told. Trump got out there and gave the information. Who wants you to have more information? That left-wing press is saying, no, don't watch that. You can't see that. The other side, Trump, is saying, see everything. Here are the documents. Dennis Prager teaches us, the guy who's saying, see all the documents, he's probably the guy you should trust. The other guy's trying to keep something from you. All right, we're going to get into this. Why do I title this, thank you, Mr. President? Well, first, yes, great information. The oversimplified version, my brain, ordinary American, no expert, and I'm happy about that. I need to oversimplify things. What Trump showed was he showed that there's been election corruption for a very long time and that our elections are not secure. The specifics, we'll get into some of those, but that's the theme. The elections are not secure. They're far from secure, and foreign governments are definitely influencing it or changing the votes directly. Okay, that's the oversimplified version. We're going to watch some Trump stuff. There's two observations I want to make. One is, what Trump did last night was he gave a gift to the country, a psychological gift. What's that? He confirmed our reality. For certainly the 77 million Americans who voted for him, he confirmed our reality. He said, you no longer have to pretend that 2020 was a legitimate election. No, Joe Biden didn't get 81 million votes when he didn't campaign, when he was a mongoloid, brain dead person. Mongoloid is a term my mom used to use. Okay? No, he did not get 81 million votes. It was corrupted. No, it wasn't just a coincidence that they started COVID so that they could do mail-in ballots. And then despite the fact that we know from the Carter-Baker Commission that mail-in ballots jack up the corruption and cause corruption and illegal elections from Jimmy Carter and Baker back in 2004 or 5. The New York Times, who've played it before, we've shown it, has said, when there's more mail-in ballots, there's more corruption. So we don't have to pretend the elections were corrupted. This is a great gift to the psychology of all us ordinary Americans, certainly our Trump voters. He's also helping other people wake up because he's giving out so much information. There are the diehards. There's 20% of the population, that's my guess from reading the things that I read, who will go to their grave murdered by the left, saying what's happening isn't happening. Yes, the guillotine will be coming down. They'll be claiming, no, this isn't the left, this is Trump. Okay? Even though the person doing the guillotine is saying, no, I'm from the left. That's 20% of the people. There's 80% of the people that are wake-upable, if that's a real word. Okay? 77 million of us have already woken up. A smaller number have been woken up from the beginning. And now each day that goes by, some more are waking up. Okay? They're seeing this. And last night was confirming our reality. Solitary confinement messes with your brain because you can't confirm your reality against anybody. You don't know what's happening. Darkness is the same thing. In total darkness and solitary confinement, your brain goes crazy. Trump confirmed our reality. Thank you, Mr. President. The other thing that he talked about, but I don't think he brought it up in this way. It seems obvious to me, I could be wrong, I'll take it if I'm wrong, that Maduro is talking and cooperating. It seems obvious to me that last night was not a standalone event. He didn't get up there and just say, I'm going to push this all out, and then I'm going to go on back to Iran, and I'm not going to think about this again. It's part of a bigger plan having to do with the Save America Act. I think having to do with Maduro. I think Maduro has been talking. I think they're getting information from him. And Maduro would have it all. I would imagine that Maduro has reached out to other people and said, come on in. They'll do a deal with you too. Okay? You know, in a normal situation with somebody who's, you know, in that sort of position, maybe not a world leader, but like wise guys and other things. I've given you the examples before. My grandfathers both were bookmakers. One of them was really in the rackets. And he used to describe what they would call a proffer session. That's what they call it. And that's when you go in and you have like a get out of jail free card for 2 hours or 5 hours or however long the session is. And you share what you have. Okay. And they will decide afterwards what kind of deal they want to give you for that information. If they decide not to give you a deal, they can't use that information from you. They have to go get it in the real world, but they can't use it against you. With Maduro, it's a little different, but it's similar, but it's a little different because he's under indictment here in America for drug charges and other things. They can, if they want, say, what can you share with us? And I don't think so, but they could let him off completely if the information is big enough. I don't think that they will, but I think that they could. So he's likely going through many proffer sessions saying, this is what I've got. We're going to see more of that, I think, and we're going to hear more of that. But I think Maduro's talking. I think he is. All right. The first thing I want to get on the screen here, and I want to talk about, this is from the great Maze Moore. I say it all the time. He's an awesome follow. He's a must follow if you want to use video to learn stuff. Certainly if you're trying to create content, he's awesome. But if you want to send stuff to people, this is a Biden speech from 2021. Let's listen to this.
During the campaign for the presidency, I was unequivocal that if I was elected president, I'd respond to any attempt to influence our elections, the last election, and because elections are sacred, they're sovereign undertakings, and they're an expression of the will of the American people. And we cannot allow a foreign power to interfere in our democratic process with impunity. And I told them if it turned out that as I thought, that there was engagement in our elections, that I'd respond. Today, I've approved several steps, including expulsion of several Russian officials as a consequence of their actions. I've also signed an executive order authorizing new measures, including sanctions to address specific harmful actions that Russia has taken against U.S. interests. I was clear with President Putin that we could have gone further, but I chose not to do so. I chose to be proportionate.
This is going to be a great comparison. We're now going to show Trump, and you'll notice something. Notice the backdrop there. Okay, before I take it off, notice the backdrop. Notice the backdrop. Here we go. Okay. Now, yes, presidents do speeches in different areas, but I suspect strongly that they were also doing this to show the contrast. Okay. Same place. He gave a proportional response to Putin. He didn't do anything, is what he didn't do. And you even saw him in his speech. Like our elections are, well, they're sacred, just sort of in a passing. He didn't do anything. Why? Because he didn't want to do anything. He won from corruption. As my grandfather, go back to him today. He's making a lot of appearances. Abe Sarkis, you can look him up. I'm named after him. My first name is Abraham. Okay? He said thieves have a hard time accessing the justice system because you can't go to the cops the way that somebody else could. If somebody steals something that you stole from somebody or that you got from doing a crime, you can't go report that to the cops. Biden can't report to anyone the corruption that he knows he was part of. Trump doesn't have that problem. Listen to the difference.
The Chinese government sought to identify U.S. journalists who had reported negatively on the U.S. president and pay them large sums of money to write more negative articles about him, as many as they could, and they didn't care what they said. The Chinese government wanted U.S. president to lose the next election, and the reason they wanted me to lose is because they knew I was wise to them, charged them billions and billions of dollars worth of tariffs, and built the strongest military anywhere in the world.
He's right. Now, I play that because that's a contrast with what we just saw. I'm going to go to this video in a second. Okay, that's a contrast to what we just saw. Biden gave you something that was vague and something about the elections are sacred. I don't really mean it. And then he said, and I'm going to do something proportional with Putin. And I told him this, that, and the other thing. What's Trump doing? Trump's giving us specific information. The Chinese corrupted our reporters. We're going to deal with this again probably a little later today. The Chinese corrupted our reporters. Okay? The Chinese, he goes on to say other things where he says the Chinese stole 200 million voter information files. Okay? So they corrupted the press, and then the press does what they do all the time, which is they go anti-Trump. That helps China. And then, by the way, there's a couple of great articles that show how much China has spent with places like the Washington Post advertising. That's bribery. It's a great scam in the press. You buy advertising, and then you work with the editorial side, and you expect good articles. I can't tell you how many business people have bought ads in press, TV, et cetera. And then if that organization comes out with a bad story or news, there is a conversation between the heads, because part of the quid pro quo implied is if I buy advertising, I expect at least a fair shake. Okay? What Trump is saying is he's being very specific. China interfered. They paid reporters. They paid news organizations. And they don't like me because I was imposing tariffs and building a strong military. The other idiots were not doing that. Now, let's go to the next piece.
As the documents we are releasing show, CIA reporting explicitly stated, and I quote, in mid-2018, the Chinese Communist Party's policy was to leverage all domestic and foreign elements that were opposed to the U.S. president in an effort to reduce the U.S. president's votes and make him resign or prevent his re-election. Isn't that nice? Also, in mid-2018, China was working to influence the results of the U.S. midterm elections and later the results of the 2020 presidential election itself. Separately, in mid-2019, the Chinese government's strategy against the United States was focused on undermining domestic confidence in the U.S. president. They wanted to just make you sound like your president wasn't so hot, when actually your president has done a great job. And they did everything possible to do exactly that. Going on, this document says, and this is by the CIA, the strategy included efforts to use Chinese contacts with big U.S. companies to influence U.S. business leaders to turn against the President of the United States of America.
You see the difference? Specifics. He's helping confirm for us our own reality. We knew this. We saw this. Okay? This is why I say thank you, Mr. President. He's giving us specifics. He's giving us specifics. And this specific is saying that the government, the deep state, the unelected bureaucrats, as Mike Benz calls it, the blob. I think he's more referring just to the IC community, the intelligence community, but you get the point. It's all these people that stick into government like ticks and never leave. They've been not sharing, they did not share, that's awkward to say it that way. They did not share that information with President Trump when he was President Trump. They changed it. Whoever did that committed treason. Listen, let's be honest here. In 2020, the Democrats committed a coup and it was successful. They stole an election. We say it that way and it sounds sort of like, oh, hey, we were fighting and they stole it. No, they stole the election. It was totally corrupted. They started in 2016 with Obama and Clinton and all the rest of them in the Oval Office on whatever day that was in December after the election, where they started the attack on Trump, spying on him, etc. They concluded it in many ways, or at least step one, in 2020 when they corrupted the election. They tried to remove him. China obviously was helping that, as you see. And part of the way they did it is they got people in government to go against the sitting president. That's treason. That's not, you can't water it down. He's the commander in chief. These people committed treason. I hope there are consequences, but I am grateful that Trump is exposing this. So now we have our reality confirmed. We can all know it. When I talk to my lefty friends, I can say, go read the documents. The CIA is not allowed to make that decision for the president. No matter what you think about the president, imagine this. If the government documents said the CIA needs to report to the president, they're in the executive branch, except when the CIA in their own judgment thinks that they shouldn't, then they can do whatever they want. What we're finding out is too often that's what the CIA has done. That's what he's showing there. Thank you, Mr. President. Yes. Okay, now let's see what happens. I hope that there are some consequences. I don't think that last night's speech was a one-off. I think it's part in a series, in a plan. And I think that he'll follow it up with something, not sure what it is. Obviously, by the way, the Save America Act needs to get put in place because the main factual theme that he showed last night was the elections are corrupted. The Chinese stole 200 plus million voter records. They were manipulating businesses and certainly journalists. The Democrats were all in because they hate Trump. They don't care for America. They just want power. Okay? So totally corrupted. Save America Act can't fix everything we see there, but it can fix a lot because one of the ways the Democrats corrupt the elections is through illegals and mail-in ballots. Those are two big ways. Illegals and mail-in ballots. We've already talked about the New York Times has already told us mail-in ballots cause fraud. The Carter-Baker Commission said mail-in ballots cause fraud. Okay, so when the Democrats go and start to give out a lot of mail-in ballots and then say everybody should get one and put them out there, they're doing it so that then they can ballot harvest in California, so that they can cheat and corrupt the elections. Why? Go back to yesterday's show. Socialism isn't that popular, it turns out. We think it is because they flood the box through the press, academia, and the elected class with leftism. But when you ask the American people, it's not that popular. Why do I say that? Not to say we shouldn't fight it. We absolutely have to fight it. Actually, we have to fight it harder because it's a minority of people who are controlling the rest of us. They're stealing our country. That's really what's going on. They're stealing our country. So we need to fight even harder. Save America Act will do one major thing. It'll make it so that everybody who votes have to prove they're American. Photo ID. There is zero legitimate reason to be opposed to it. All the nonsense about blacks not being able to get IDs, totally racist, Woodrow Wilson level racist stuff. Okay? Of course they can get IDs. And in fact, 94% of voting aged black Americans already have an ID. We can help the other 6%. We can help the other 6%. Totally racist on the Democrats' part to say that black people can't figure out an ID. And by the way, totally insulting to women by trying to trick you with the stuff like if you get married, suddenly you can't vote. Totally, or you have to put out you got to show your birth certificate every time you go to the polls. Just read the bill, guys. Just read it. It does not say that. Again, go back to the Dennis Prager wisdom. Who wants you to have more information? I'm telling you, just go read the bill on your own. Don't listen to me. Who am I? I'm the guy who turned the camera on. I love my God, my family, and my country. I got a great flag. Today's Forgiveness Friday, and I got my Forgiveness Friday shirt on. One nation under God. Don't believe me. Go read the bill. What do the Democrats tell you? No, don't go read anything. Trust me. That's what they say. Trust me. I'm telling you this. Save America Act will eliminate a huge amount of this. There's a bigger problem, which we're now going to transition into some more Joe Rogan and J.D. Vance. We talked about this briefly yesterday, but A, I don't think I did a very good job of it, and B, I think I left a couple of big things out. Once the Democrats, the left, it's the same thing, get control of a town, a city, a state, a country, what they do is they legalize the illegal. They legalize the illegal. California is the best example of this. Single party rule. So they've been just going through making laws that make things that should be illegal or that are illegal, legal. Ballot harvesting. Ballot harvesting where they can just send anyone out who can collect as many ballots as they want from anybody for any reason with no oversight. That's obviously a recipe for disaster, and it is. I try to mention this a lot. If you look at California, 2016, 2020, 2024, it has been going much more red when you look at a blue-red map in terms of precincts or counties. And what you see in 2024 is largely it's San Francisco and LA with some in San Diego. And much of that is corruption. Much of that is corruption. Okay? So, California has been corrupted. I think I've got the right video here, but let me just see if I do. We'll play it and we'll see. We'll see if I got the right video. There's two of them, and I can't remember which one. Oh, no, hold on. What's this one? No, let's try this one. All right. They're similar, but let's try this one.
Really possible that the elections get stolen. And the California one was a big one for me.
And why not just have mail-in, or why not just have voter ID?
Yeah.
You actually
that's
saw
insane. Not only did they not have voter ID, you can't show your ID. You're not allowed to show your ID.
You can in fact be like prosecuted if you try to force somebody to show their ID.
Which is that
that's not making the illegal legal. Actually, it's what it's doing is it's making something that should be legal illegal. They're saying, which is true. I lived in California. We were told as poll workers, I volunteered for the polls. I've talked about this a lot. They told you, do not ask for an ID. You cannot.
seems like you want people to cheat.
Exactly.
Of course.
And this is from the same people that were saying you have to have an ID that shows you've been vaccinated just 4 years ago to go to
grocery
restaurant
shopping or to go to a restaurant. Yeah, no, it's definitely, that's the part about it that I think makes most people of my political persuasion skeptical of what the Democrats are doing.
Yeah.
Like if you don't want to
being
cheat the
charitable.
election, then just make everybody actually show an ID.
I'm not skeptical. I'm accusing them.
Thank you,
I think
Joe.
they stole the election.
Yes.
What they're saying is
Thank you, Joe. Okay. By the way, this website is this X account is I think it is. Yeah, Wall Street Apes, great account, and then he does a little analysis. Great account. Highly recommend it. Okay, but Joe says what we're all thinking. Yes, they cheated. They cheated. That's the next one I'm going to put up. They cheated. This is the great thing that Trump gave us last night. Now we don't have to pretend anymore. The great line from the Soviet Union. They pretended to pay us and we pretended to work. Or I mentioned it yesterday, the great scene from 1984, the book, where they're torturing the guy, whatever, I can't remember his name at the moment. They're torturing him, saying 4 + 4 is 5. And he says, no, it's not, it's 4. Then eventually he gives in because it gets too much. And he says, okay, it's 5. And they keep torturing him. And then what does he say? He says, why you keep on torturing me? He says, because now you have to believe it. The left needs to distort your brain. Trump last night, the biggest service he did, more than the facts, was he confirmed the reality for most of us sane people. Okay? Let's get back and do some more reality confirming with Joe and JD.
We're going to win California in my lifetime necessarily, but I don't like the idea of giving up on it.
Well, it's not just giving up on. I mean, giving up on it would be terrible. It's an awesome state. The real problem is it's deeply corrupt. Yes. I mean, deeply, deeply corrupt. And what they're trying to do is make it impossible for the other side to win.
Yeah.
And there should be laws against that. First of all, the idea of mail-in ballots for anybody other than people who are invalids, who can't leave their homes, or military, or people that are, for some reason,
Absolutely.
they're serving overseas, they're doing something overseas. It should not be legal.
That's right.
And the fact that it became ubiquitous during COVID is a giant problem.
Thank you, Joe.
So this raises one of my total segue here, side point, but
he's going to get into something. But what Joe said is right. Okay, it's corrupt. The mail-in ballots were corrupt. We all had to pretend like, oh, well, that's important because of COVID. COVID was the purpose to get the mail-in ballots. Okay, now we don't have to pretend. Trump relieved us of that. And by the way, California, I put out a post last night because I couldn't stand this anymore. California is winnable in 2028 for the Republicans. Absolutely. Go look at the map. Go to 270 to win. I don't have it up, but go to 270 to win and compare 16, 20, and 24. And then take into account that it's deeply corrupted, as he says, or as they totally cheated. Where would they have cheated? In the hinterlands, in Central California, in the farm country? No, they're voting for Trump. San Francisco and Los Angeles, where they have single party control. This is one of the reasons why they didn't want Spencer Pratt to win and why they cheated and corrupted that election to keep him out. Because if he got in, he would find, because you can only get rid of so many documents in the government, he would find everything. LA and San Francisco, JD or Rubio can win California if there's legitimate elections. Listen to this piece.
So if you remember in the aftermath of the 2020 election, where there was all this like debate about was the election stolen, was the election not stolen, all the litigation that moved through, there was a case in Pennsylvania that like didn't get very much attention. And I'm going to butcher it a little bit, but basically it was a guy in a rural area of Pennsylvania saying, you're undercounting my vote because we didn't have the opportunity to do the mail-in ballots like they did in Philadelphia and Pittsburgh. And like the argument was a kind of disparate impact, right? The cities ginned up all the mail-in balloting and the ballot harvesting. You didn't do that in the country, and that hurt sort of our representation. So they take this case to the Pennsylvania courts. And what's crazy is the Pennsylvania courts basically say, you're making kind of a good point here. Like the ballot harvesting did affect Republicans in a more negative way. It did mean that certain people in the more rural parts of the state were underrepresented. But then the court conclusion was, this is not a problem a court can fix. Like that's a political problem. Change your, local elections leaders, change your laws. Like that's not a remedy that the court has to fix. And so everybody saw that case and they're like, oh, the judge rules against Donald Trump, rules against Republicans for saying that there was something illegitimate. But no, actually, the judge kind of said, there is something kind of fishy here. We're just the wrong venue to fix it.
Mm. That is true. That is absolutely what happened. Okay? All my lefty friends like to constantly say, we litigated that. We did not litigate it. All of those cases got thrown out on technicalities, standing, and other things. By the way, I still don't understand. I've tried to study, and I'm going to keep trying. I still don't understand why any American doesn't have standing to challenge an election. If our vote wasn't counted or votes like us, I don't understand why we don't have standing. Evidently, we don't so far, and maybe that will change. But that's what he's saying there. JD is saying that it was never decided on the merits. It was always some technicality. Joe Rogan is right. It's all corrupted. JD's being more of a politician. I don't like that aspect of him. I like it when he's more Trump and less, himself. Say it. It's corrupted. Joe Rogan said it. By the way, Joe Rogan was a Bernie bro. So it's not like he was, Mr. Trump. He was not at all. Okay. I want to skip to something else. It relates to this significantly, but it doesn't get any attention. I haven't seen anybody really cover it for a long time, and I want to bring it up. The woman's name is Jennifer Von Lehr. She's a reporter from Los Angeles, okay? And she covers this stuff. I highly recommend you follow her. She's got great takes and gets to real information. Let's read this together. Wait, are we up there? Yeah, okay. Let's read this. China wasn't simply obtaining voter data. Remember, I just said that one of the things Trump said was they got 200 million voter pieces of data on voters. Okay, 200 million. Why is that important? They could maybe vote for them. That might be important. Corrupt them. Who knows? But listen to this. It was also obtaining the personal information of election workers in LA County. Why would they want to do that? So they can blackmail them, so they can coerce them, so they can bribe them. Then Deputy DA Eric Neff obtained an indictment against Michigan-based Connick, but George Gascon not only dismissed charges, but had LA County pay $5 million settlement to Connick CEO and CCP asset Eugene Yu for violating his civil rights. In the feel-good twist of the year, Neff is the acting chief of the voting rights section of the Civil Rights Division at the United States Department of Justice. Okay, what is going on here? She reported on this back then. You can read the article. Gascon was the Soros-backed DA, little history for all you Democrats who like to think that you're so righteous, okay? He ran against a sitting female black DA and beat her. So all you lefties in LA, you voted for a white male over the sitting black female DA. Just so we all know what we're talking about. I believe Gascon was eventually voted out. I think eventually they took him out, okay? But Neff got a conviction and Gascon overruled it. Neff has a lawsuit going on right now for whatever it's called, improper, they fired him improperly. I can't think of the term, okay? Sorry about the noise outside. He's got a lawsuit that's coming up. It's having a hearing at the end of July and it's supposed to go to trial in August. What she brings up here is critically important. We've often talked about the sue and settle scam. The sue and settle scam, oversimplified, is when people on the same side of an issue sue and settle. So, but it's the government versus a outside of government entity, but they're both on the same side. It appears most often and most frequent in the environmental world. The environmentalists sue the EPA. They're actually on the same side. They go behind closed doors for settlement talks where we don't get to see anything, and they come out with a settlement where our tax dollars go to that nonprofit environmentalist group, and they agree to change and make new regulations. That's how they use the system against us. This is the same thing. What did Gascon do? He paid $5 million to this Chinese asset who corrupted an election through voting machines. And then when this guy spoke up and said, hey, wait a second, this guy's no good, they discriminated against him. I think they fired him too. I'm not sure if they fired him. Okay, so he's got a wrongful termination. That's the name of the suit. Wrongful termination suit. It's coming up. We're going to find out, I think, some interesting things in this suit. I'd highly recommend to watch out for this. Go to Jennifer Von Lehr. I'm sure she's going to follow it. But there's another scam of our money, by the way. We see JD and the fraud squad. We see Nick Shirley and James O'Keefe exposing these trillions of dollars of our money being stolen. There's another way. Sue and settle. Gascon took $5 million. I'm surprised it wasn't $50 million. Took $5 million from LA to get paid to this guy. Total scam. Okay? He committed fraud. And this guy Neff had him. Okay. We're going to move on. Marco Rubio gave a great speech the other day. There's a couple of pieces from it that were something. Marco Rubio is turning into a political superstar. I have had my doubts because he's been a member of the Senate for so long. and I think anybody who stays in that organization or the House long enough, or politics in general, gets corrupted. Okay, but he's the most aggressive guy that I have seen in the administration, more aggressive than even JD. Now, I still suspect it will be JD and Rubio as the vice president. But let's just give a quick listen to this. It's 48 seconds.
In one 18-month period between 1971 and 1972, the FBI counted some 2,500 bombings on American soil, a rate of nearly 5 a day. The overwhelming share of that violence came from left-wing extremists. Between 1970 and 1980, 93% of terrorist attacks in the West came from the far extremist left. These are numbers that would shock most Americans today, because we've been taught to believe that this kind of political violence, it simply doesn't exist, or it's being exaggerated. But it does exist, and we're actually underestimating it. And our nations bear the scars to prove it.
All on the left. Violence is a left-wing weapon. It is a left-wing phenomenon. They want to lie to you again. The left needs to lie and create charades about everything and say it's on both sides. It is not on both sides. Show me the leftist Charlie Kirk that was assassinated in public. You can't. Scalise was shot. That should have been an assassination. Thank goodness he lived. Trump's been tried to be killed, 3-4 times that we know of. By the way, Basent came out yesterday, I think it was. I didn't pull up the video, but he says that there was an attempt on his life, and that guy, whoever it is going to get sentenced soon here. So we'll probably read about that. The left is the violent group because they're fascists, socialists, and communists. And because their policies don't work, there's nothing they can argue. And when they can't argue, what do? Force. Kill you, hurt you, intimidate you. Okay? All right. Rubio, superstar. I want to play this next video. I'm watching the clock, and it is Forgiveness Friday. And I've got forgiveness on my mind. All right. Sorry, I'm just going over this. Trying to make this come up here. Doing a little myself producing here on the show, as I do. All right. Let's see this, if I can get it back to the beginning. There we go.
Kurt, I'm glad you mentioned leftists who hate Western civilization and all that, because Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, just gave a little while ago a really smashing speech, absolutely hammering the problem of leftist violence. Here's a little look.
A healthcare executive executed in cold blood in the streets, multiple assassination attempts on a sitting president, and the murder of the greatest conservative activist of a generation, a man who happened to also be a husband and the father of 2 young children, shot and killed while speaking to a crowd of students. This is a distinctive and unique evil. It has always been driven by a hatred, above all else, a hatred for civilization itself.
And in this speech, he also talked about Antifa and their organized networks. I'm hoping that this prefigures a much bigger push against leftist domestic terrorism, which we're seeing
Me too.
more and more of, it seems.
I think you are going to see that. I think you're going to see the full weight of American law enforcement bent to defeat these leftist murderers. They failed in what they wanted to do. They killed Charlie Kirk, and 1,000 Charlie Kirks are going to spring up. They tried to murder the president. He went and won the election. And they should hope that all we do is law enforcement, because if they start the revolution that they keep talking about, there's 100 million Americans with firearms who would love nothing more than to finish this problem. Civil wars are distinctly uncivil. I know. I've served in the ruins of one. And, Pinochet used to toss communists out of helicopters. The communists in America would probably be getting off easy if that's all that happened to them. It doesn't make me happy to say it. I don't want it. But the vast number of Americans are not going to live on their knees to a bunch of spoiled trust fund leftists ruling over them forever. Not going to happen. Thank God for our Second Amendment.
Well, I tell you.
So, several things in there to talk about. One of the things he's saying in there is what we talk about often, which is that the thing that separates us from Iran and Cuba and Venezuela and Russia and all the other countries is that we have our Bill of Rights. We have our form of government. And that our form of government does give us a Second Amendment, which allows us to have weapons. And our weapons, while it's great to hunt, while it's great to sport shoot, I had an uncle who was a great sports shooter, won a lot of contests. It's awesome. I grew up shooting skeet, shooting in the backyard. We shot everything. Okay, it's awesome. It's not for that reason. It is to defend the citizens against the government. And really what it is to do is to deter the government. I bring it up all the time. I probably mentioned it yesterday, and I'm making a cardinal sin of content, which is I'm repeating myself. But it's important. What did Castro do? He armed everybody before the revolution so they all had guns and they could fight. After he won, what did he do? He said, give me back the guns. He disarmed everybody. Why? Because he didn't want them to be able to go after him. Because he knew what he was going to do. What was he going to do? He didn't give the people the power. He took it himself and became a billionaire. That's always the left. They always need to disarm. What's the problem in Iran right now? The citizens don't have weapons and they're scared because the IRGC are murderers. Okay? And what he's saying in there is the Second Amendment deters the government. So if you're a leftist and you think somehow you're going to get the government and you're going to do what Maduro did or you're going to do what the Ayatollah did, I doubt it. I don't think that's what's going to happen. I don't think so. All right. Speaking about men. Yesterday I played a piece. There was an article about testosterone and how testosterone. Now I'm going to try to pull it up. And how testosterone played a serious role. Let's see here. How Pete. Sorry, I'm trying to find the video at the same time. Pete Hegseth is going to have testosterone checked in men, and I said it's important. If you want men, especially young men, to be willing to jump over walls or storm a beach when death is pretty certain, you better have us have a lot of testosterone. Okay. I also mentioned in terms of society that hormones are very powerful. Dan Bongino brings up a great point. If I can find, let's see. I'm going to pull it up and we're going to work together here a little bit because I don't have it set up. I didn't set it up. But let's see if I can get it to come up. All right, let's see here.
What's the lie? He's warning you you're being hit with a massive global propaganda and off the fact that this thing was real. To just get you the truth, we all just want to leave it here, okay? Don't bury the lead. The lead of this story.
I might not be able to find it.
That's so funny.
Oh, here it is.
I'm going to give you a little background.
Here we go.
This, okay?
Listen to this.
Military to require testosterone screening, but the healthy men actually need it. My good friend Buck Sexton, got experience in the intel space himself. Buck Sexton had some comments here, and he is 100% spot on. He says most people aren't ready for the next part of the conversation yet. Aren't ready for part of the conversation yet, sorry. But our combat units, special ops guys, should be able to optimize their body chemistry however they see fit under military doctor supervision to get the mission done. Why am I bringing this up here? Seems totally unrelated. It's not. I just told you about the massive China threat and this global propaganda operation to create fake narratives, to distract you, to pollute the information environment, influence elections, influence public opinion. Folks, China is way, way, way ahead of us on this. You think the whole with a super soldier Captain America thing?
There it is.
It's a movie, a great comic book.
There it is. Okay, I'm going to stop it there. There it is. China, Russia, others, they are trying to create better soldiers. There'll be robots probably in the future, and then they'll try to create better robots. Anybody who's played sports, I played sports my whole life, been an athlete. When you go up against somebody that's using performance enhancing drugs, or as we called them back in the 80s, steroids, you can tell a difference. And the problem is they work. They make you stronger, faster. They give you more capability. They just do. And now the advancements in those worlds, Hegseth is talking about it as testosterone because he can't have an infantry officer with a testosterone level of 150. It's not going to work. His head's not going to be right. He needs that infantry officer to have his testosterone at 1200. Okay? But what Bongino's getting to there, and it's a brilliant point, is that these other places, they don't really care about their soldiers. They'll jack them up on any kind of a drug or anything they can do to make them perform, even short term. You see in that Captain Phillips movie, how the Somalis, they're taking that thing that they chew on in their mouth, which is essentially like a drug, I think like an amphetamine or a cocaine, which keeps them jacked up for long periods of time. The world is changing. Pete Hegseth talking about testosterone, exactly. That's right. He should. He's probably doing way more than that. Peptides, stem cells, a whole bunch of things probably going on. And that's good. I was just reading, by the way, side note, just reading the other day that there's a guy, it's on a Ben Greenfield podcast. I think it was one of the most recent ones, talking about how they took their own stem cells out, spun them, separated them, and then stuck them in the refrigerator for like 4 or 5 hours, and they grew, and they put them back in their body. I can see a time where our special operators and even our regular infantry and regular soldiers are just routinely getting new stem cells. I've mentioned those in the past. And it's repairing their bodies, okay, and getting them ready to go again. All of these things, this is what's making us the best military in the world. Just the other day, Anduril, I think, put out a video of a drone airplane shooting a rocket off of it. Okay, we're starting to see the bigger drone ships in the Navy. We are the biggest, strongest military, and we need to be. Why? Because of this election fraud. Because as these other countries fear us more, they will be less likely to do this election fraud. Because they'll see what's happening in Iran and they'll know that could happen to them. We have other advantages. Their populations are dying off. China has their problem with the men versus women in their population. They're young, they're not replacing them. Russia's people are depressed, addicted, dying off. All right. I want to get to Forgiveness Friday, but I wanted to mention that because that I even covered that a little bit as much more of like a health and wellness thing, and that's great for the soldiers. Bongino really nailed it. This is a make the military the best in the world item. And everything we can do to be getting soldiers' testosterone levels, among other things. And by the way, I know factually that at least the special operators, they've been doing peptides and other things for a long time. And they should. We need that. That's not the same thing as an Olympic athlete going and cheating. There is no cheating when you're fighting a war. Okay? There's no cheating. You just want to win. All right. There's so much more to get to, but it is Forgiveness Friday, and I'm really late. All right, bring it down. One nation under God. If you've been with us for a while, you see our Forgiveness Friday. It's at the end of the week. I believe strongly that the greatest life hack you can do, it's not peptides, it's not testosterone, it's not kettlebells, it's not keto, it's not change your diet, it's none of that. It's build a relationship with God. That has worked in my life. It does not make everything go perfect. It just makes things better. One of the biggest gifts that a Christian gets is the gift of forgiveness. I talk about it most Fridays in terms of me forgiving somebody else, or you, whoever you are, learning to forgive and how it's going to be a big benefit for you because you'll get rid of that resentment. You just heard Rubio talk about how communism, leftism, is a hatred, and a resentment for history, for culture, for society. The antidote to leftism is forgiveness. You can think that the world is corrupt, okay? But you can also forgive somebody. Father Mike Schmitz, who I listen to a lot and I talk about a lot, he talks about it in terms, he says, if I lent you my car and you busted it up, I, meaning him, he would say, I might forgive you. Maybe it's like $100 to get it fixed. I'll forgive you. I'll take care of that. But I'm not going to give you my car again. I'm bringing it up today to simply say the great thing about being a Christian is that God forgives us endlessly. And the great comparison Father Mike Schmitz gave, I think it was him a while ago that I heard, is the two stories, Judas and Peter. Peter denied Jesus 3 times at a critical moment. Judas betrayed him completely. One of those 2 guys accepted God's forgiveness and mercy. That's Peter. He went on to be a great person, essentially the first pope. Died, a terrible death because they were martyrs, but he accepted God's forgiveness. Judas did not. He hung himself by a tree. Forgiveness is not just something we give, it's something that we get. And God forgives us. And if you think you're somebody who doesn't need forgiveness, you better think again, and it's probably going to be a difficult one. We all need forgiveness. And God is endlessly forgiving. So on this Forgiveness Friday, let's just remember that God forgives us endlessly. I can go to him with my problems. I can go to him when I've sinned, and he will forgive me, and he loves me. He is the perfect Father. It is true, unconditional love. He's always seeking us. Okay, not a long Forgiveness Friday, but an important one. Lots going on. We're going to follow the Iran situation. As I've said, I suspect strongly that this is going to end with a whimper, not a bang. Okay, maybe we take Karg Island. I'm not sure. We're going to see. But I suspect all these guys who have been doing the bad guy stuff over in Iran on the D team or whatever they're down to are going to wind up bone dust. All right. Thanks for joining. Please pass it on. We're fighting the fight between the left and the right, and ahead of the midterms for sure, but ongoing. We want to wake as many people up as possible. And the president gave us a great gift last night confirming our reality. Like, subscribe, follow, pass it on, send comments. TheOrdinaryAmerican@proton.me, on X, TheOrdAmerican. We will see you back here on Monday, 2 p.m. Have a great weekend. And as Father Mike Schmitz says, I'm praying for you. Please pray for me. I'm rooting for you. Please root for me.